as well.
Okay, so with that, Chair McVicker,
Here.
Derek Carpenter,
Here.
Jeff Cahill,
Here.
Jeff Smith,
Here.
and Martine Fogel. Here.
We have a quorum. The meeting will continue. We did the Pledge of Allegiance already. So we're down to approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting, January the 18th, 2024. I reviewed them, didn't have anything, but I always defer to our resident editor,
I do too.
Mr. Jeff Cahill.
I looked at it, everything looks fine to me.
Okay,
Well, I move approval then.
second. We have a motion to approve and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
And real quickly, you guys were speedy for the record. So it's
Okay.
clear who motioned.
I move. Derek
Okay.
moved.
Thank you. And our second was Jeff Smith. Thank you.
Just click on the one.
And Karen, so that I don't make a mistake I've made too many times in the last 10 years, I'm going to sign it now.
Okay. You took a vote, right?
We did,
Okay,
and we all were.
it was all in favor.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate an expedient meeting.
Yeah,
But-
sorry.
I gotta document a few things.
Hey, we're just blue collar people here.
No, you're doing great. Thank you very much.
Consent items, next item on the agenda, none. Complaints, none. Variance or appeals hearings, none. Unfinished business, none. New business, and we are joined by Mr. John Welton. I'm sorry, John, I forgot to have you on the roll call so that Karen could put you down.
We got him.
But John is online with us. And he's going to go over the status of the 2023 NEC and the 2021 IPC. So John, the floor is yours, sir. Go ahead.
Well, as always, thank you all for making a little bit of time for me today as just a presenter, not actually having to be up there. Karen, thank you for the flexibility of being able to attend virtually today. So wanted to give everybody just a brief synopsis on where we're at in the process of either already having implemented or getting ready in the next upcoming months to implement the new state codes. So for a little recap for everybody, there are a couple of codes that we don't have the authority to adopt locally. That is the plumbing code because that is adopted at the state level. The other one is the electric code. And the third of these is the state conveyance code that regulates requirements for elevators and escalators. So the good news is, at least on elevators and escalators, we're not anticipating any code changes this year. So the two that are going to be occurring this year are the state plumbing code and the state electric code. So as of last Friday, April 12th, we have implemented the new state plumbing code, which is the 2021 IPC, along with any state amendments. And that state plumbing code does adopt in the plumbing sections from the 2021 International Residential Code. The other code, I'll go ahead and give you the time frame on the NEC, and then I'm going to circle back to where we're at on some of the bigger plumbing changes, and then just kind of give everybody a little bit of a heads up on what some of the bigger electrical changes are. First and foremost, this is good information for each of you and for the department up there to share with the contractors. On our website, www.pprbd.org, we do have handouts that we have created to kind of give everybody an update on what some of the bigger changes are. So you'll be able to find those from the homepage of our website. If you go to forms and handouts, then click on plumbing and electric independently. We've got different tabs for those. You'll see the handouts that we have created as far as the major plumbing and major electrical changes for 2024. So as I previously stated, the new plumbing code that went into effect last Friday, the 12th. So just kind of a heads up, some of the bigger things that, you might see or have to deal with moving forward just because of the plumbing code. Some of these aren't necessarily bad things. Some of them are allowances to use new technology or new fitting types. So while we're talking about that, most everybody should be familiar with shark bite fittings for water supply systems. So there are products out there that essentially now can be used on drain, waste, and vent that are essentially a shark bite type fitting. No more glue, just a pressure fitting. Those are now allowed in the 2021 IPC. There is ASME standards out there for these particular fittings. So those are, let's call that an advantage to be able to utilize new technology that the plumbing code has picked up on. One thing, especially for our remodelers out there to keep in mind is there is no allowance anymore for new construction to have a center line on a lav of less than 15 inches. The only allowance now per a state amendment to the plumbing code is for remodels. So for existing buildings only, you can have that center line of your lavatory at 12 inches off of a wall or partition now. New construction is going to have to hit that 15-inch requirement. So for any of the builders in Woodland Park that are operating off of master plans, we aren't going to require new additional plan reviews or plan submittals for those master plans. This is something that we hope everyone gets on board with and is aware of without us having to throw a big wrench into it and do additional plan reviews. But keep in mind moving forward, permits obtained or plans submitted as of April 12th or after, that center line for the lav is going to have to be 15 inches from a wall or partition unless it is a remodel. We're all familiar with the hot water pipe insulation requirements. The charging language for those is going to come out of the energy code. But again, what this 2021 state plumbing code with the 2021 IPC and residential code sections do is they cross-reference you back to the 2021 energy code for those hot water pipe insulation requirements. Some of the other things that are going to probably make a little bit of an impact as we move forward. Expansion tanks. These are going to be required on hot water or water heater replacements, if you will. And the criteria for that is going to be if there is a PRV, check valve, or a backflow that is installed on the water supply system. Every water heater that gets replaced is going to have an expansion tank installed now. So that was one that was a little bit of a conversation down here with some of our contractors. And unfortunately, this is one of those codes, like we mentioned, where we don't adopt it locally. We just have to enforce what the state says. So, yes, sir, Mr. Cahill.
Would that be also necessary for on-demand heating system?
That is a good question, Jeff.
If there's no,
No
If-
storage.
if
Backflow
there- yeah,
center, okay.
so give me 1 second here. I'm trying to pull up my commentary documentation. So this looks like as long as there is a what we'll call it a water reservoir, then the expansion tank is going to be required. For instance, like on a tankless system, this would not be the case. Does that answer your question, Jeff?
Yes, sir, it does.
Perfect. One of the other, and the good thing on the plumbing side is we didn't really identify a lot of major changes. What we tried to do was find the major changes, put those on our handout. And that's some of the ones that I'm trying to bring up to you today. The good news is not a ton of change on the plumbing side. There's substantial changes on the electrical side. But then the couple of the other changes on the plumbing side, just to make this board aware of, is requirement now for a 5 PSI air test when we are venting an appliance with plastic pipe. So this is probably the other big one, just to kind of bring to everybody's attention. So for those people permitting those master plans, or for those projects that the plan submittal comes in on April 12th or after, there is a requirement, you know, even if it is a high efficiency direct vent appliance, if we're venting with plastic pipe, plumbing code is going to require now that 5 PSI air test on that plastic pipe utilized for the vent. So what we're seeing now is these testing requirements coming into more elements than just the drain, waste, and vent piping. So really, you know, not a substantial amount of changes, which we're thankful for on the plumbing side. The electrical side is a little bit of a different story. The electrical side has, I'm just doing a quick count here. We actually came up with 7 pages of what we believe to be pretty good changes on the electrical code. So again, let's talk about the target date. Last year, July 30th is when the state adopted the new 2023 NEC as the state state electrical code. Locally, we have 12 months to implement and start enforcing that new code. So July 29th of this year is the magic date when the implementation for the new electrical code will take place. So with that, the 2023 National Electrical Code will go into effect for the jurisdictions that we serve on July 29th. I'm not going to go through and keep y'all till 7 o'clock on the 7 pages that we identified as pretty good.
About 7 more minutes.
Yeah, well, as quick as y'all went on the minutes, I've only got a couple of minutes left. So, so you know what I really want to do on the electric side is direct you to our website. All right, so go to our website, go to the forms and handouts, go to the electrical tab under forms and handouts, and read over and review this. And I encourage anybody, whether it's a contractor, a board member, a homeowner, you know, if you have questions on what some of these mean, contact our staff. We have a fantastic electrical department that can answer the questions on the electric side a whole lot better than I can. But we have seen, and I guess I'll just give you a quick summary. Ever since pretty much the 2008 NEC, we've seen progressive increase in requirements for what circuits need GFI, GFCI protection, arc fault protection. Whether or not a small appliance circuit, even outside the kitchen, needs to be protected for GFCI. So some of these changes that are going to take place, you're going to start seeing now. GFCI protection is going to be required for all circuits in a kitchen, not just the ones in a wet location or at a countertop. You're going to see changes upcoming for how outlets are going to be not necessarily required in the same way on a kitchen island or a peninsula that they have been in the past. So right now, I'll give you an example. The 2020 NEC requires, a small appliance circuit. If you have an island that's 9 square feet, I've got to have one small appliance circuit. For every additional X amount of square feet of that island, I have to add another outlet, another small appliance circuit. For whatever justification the group did with the NEC, we've seen a lot of these changes kind of back up. And now we have 3 options for how to provide small appliance circuits at a kitchen island under this new code. First off is a pop-up. So no longer can you have the outlets on the side where somebody can grab a cord and pull a blender or a toaster off on their head. The first option is that electrical appliance option of a pop-up outlet in the countertop. One of the other options is you can plan for future small appliance circuits. You don't have to do the pop-up through the expense of granite, but you do have to plan for a future circuit, essentially dead end a circuit into a junction box in a cabinet. That is another allowed option. One thing that we have seen a push on is a tightening up of the requirements, if you will, for working surface for the grade, the floor slope, or platform slope at working clearances. The biggest element of this is going to be, outside the exterior of a building or a home, where the code now is going to be looking for, that minimum 3 foot, more stable, solid working surface within that working area for, let's say, an electrical panel or a disconnect or something like that. So we've seen a little bit of those requirements tightened up as well, where you can't leave a 10% slope right in front of the electrical panel if it's on the exterior, or the meter socket, or the disconnect. So we're going to have to see a little bit better, firmer working clearance in those locations. So some of the other elements that we've seen, not necessarily all bad or much more restrictive, but we've seen quite a few sections that had new exceptions added. So for instance, like in garages, where we had certain requirements for required branch circuits, we've had another exception added to that particular section that applies to 20 amp circuits in a single vehicle bay garage. And those can be supplied off of the same circuit instead of, so let's say we had a 3-car garage, a 2-car bay, and a single bay. That third car bay, even though it's in the same envelope of the garage, in many cases, that was going to be required to have an additional circuit run to it. This exception kind of helps us out and allows the electrician to run that all off of the same circuit. So those are some of the bigger things. And again, I encourage everyone, go to our website. If you need to make a bag of popcorn to get through it, I encourage you to do that. But we have identified 7 pages of potential changes on the electric side that may impact not only electrical contractors, but general contractors as well, once we get to that July 29th date. Keep in mind, as you're reviewing that handout that we put together, a lot of those aren't going to always be applicable to single family homes, just like a lot of these aren't really going to be applicable to a commercial building. So we put everything, since the NEC lumps everything together, we just did one handout. But keep in mind, what, as you're reading and reviewing this, what's actually applicable to dwelling units versus not applicable to dwelling units. And again, since I am not the expert here, I encourage you, anybody that has any questions, contact our department. Contact me if you want to, and I will get you to the right person that can as best accurately answer the questions anybody has on, especially the electrical code.
Well, John, thank you again for your support of this building department and the time that you and your staff back there have put into making these handouts, reviewing all this. Sincerely appreciated by everybody up here. Thank you again.
Our pleasure.
Anybody have any comments or questions on what John just shared with us?
I did that leisurely reading yesterday without the popcorn.
Why does that not surprise me, Jeff?
I don't know. But I like to keep abreast of those things that, may impact me or not, but I thought there was a couple of things that were glaring, and I had a question about it, and if it's not inappropriate, I'd like to ask him about it now.
Go ahead.
On section 2803.6.2.1, that would be page 24 on the plumbing dissertation, which is 55 pages long. There's a comment relative to drip pans beneath hot water heaters, with the caveat that if there's possibly gravity possibilities for drainage, that could be implemented, and if not, then you need to put a pump in there to be able to evacuate the amount of fluids that would be coming out of the check valve. That could be minimal, and I'm wondering if that pump that could be designated for that activity be upgraded to, or even considered in your notes, for a compromise in the water, the vent tube, especially in the water jacket, because I had this situation happen to me in one of the homes I first bought in Colorado, where I unexpectedly walked up into the utility room and there was an inch of water standing there. And that's the first indication I had that the 10-year-old drain was not functioning. So had I had that provision, it would have evacuated the water from around the hot water heater if I had a drain pan at that time. So that wasn't mentioned. And I wanted to also say, I think it's commendable that there's dispensation in the code, in the revisions. I think that's what I'm reading, and tell me if I'm wrong, that people who have to go in and make an emergency fix, either electrically or in the plumbing end, that they are not going to be penalized for not pulling a permit on the day of the activity, but they can come the day after the emergency practice was accomplished. So I think that's very nice of you guys.
Actually, Jeff, what we locally have done for emergency work is we stipulate that in the event of emergency work, the applicant for the permit has 72 hours to contact us for a permit. Some of our justification on that time frame was trying to take in a weekend into account. You have an emergency leak or electrical issue you got to take care of right when you get home on Friday. If we would have done 24 hours, then that's really not helping anybody. So locally, what we have done is we allow 72 hours for that applicant to contact us on emergency work.
I had also seen a stipulation that reasonable time was called out for 30 days, and I didn't know if that pertained to anything or just in special circumstances.
That on our end, that's just going to be special circumstances. So the biggest thing that we're looking for with our requirement for 72 hours, it stipulates that you're going to have the permit in place in 72 hours. In some cases, you know, we administratively will work with that time frame. The biggest thing is contact us within 72 hours. In a lot of projects where we have, and I've personally been a part of as far as emergency work, not everything can just be obtained over the website or over the phone with no plan submittal. Emergency work on a commercial project or a commercial building, we might need a set of plans to go with that. So, you know, as long as we're aware and someone has called us and said, you know, we had a leak over the weekend. We're just making you aware of it. We're working with a group to get in here, you know, not only fix it, but we know that you're going to need a plan submittal for this commercial project, even to do the repair. Then we've got that on our radar, and we can work and try and best navigate and help that applicant dealing with that issue to get to the finish line without penalty.
Glad to hear it. Could I ask another question, which is more political than would be technical?
Absolutely not.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Within the electrical board's dictates and the plumbing board's dictates, there was verbiage that essentially asked to be reported anyone who's convicted of a felony. And my curiosity is, why is that necessary? Is there a blacklist or something that both of those organizations put together to not allow ex-convicts or ex-felons to be able to participate in gainful employment if they had a license?
I
I was framed. It wasn't.
Yeah, that one, not that I'm gonna totally stay away from it, Jeff, but I don't know what I don't want to use the term blacklist. The thing on the state side is licenses for plumbing and electrical are done at the state level. We locally, unlike building contractors, mechanical contractors, gas piping contractors, we don't have the authority to license those individuals on the plumbing and the electrical side. What we do locally is we register. So someone that has an electrical master's license or a plumbing master license at the state, what they do with us is locally register. So we have nothing to do with the licensing aspect of that. Now, I will say, even for the contractors that we license locally, we do a name-based judicial record search when that contractor is applying. And we ask them to identify if they have a felony as it relates to a construction related offense. So a lot of that is for us, or not really even me, but our legal team to review and follow up with that applicant. As far as how the state from the plumbing and the electrical side utilizes that information, I honestly can't answer that. That would actually be a really good question to direct to the state electrical board or the state plumbing board. But on our end, that is something that we ask about for the contractors that do license through us, so that in the event there is something that comes up, then our legal team gets involved and has that conversation aside from the rest of staff, such as myself, with that applicant.
Just curious.
Anybody else have anything for John? Karen?
I do not.
Well, if John has a couple more minutes, I'd like to share with the board. As you know, I'm pretty keen on energy stuff. And I've been following the 2024 IECC. It is the last 2024 code book from the ICC to be released. It's gone through a lot of heated discussions and appeals and stuff on some of the provisions. And it's, I think, out for print right now, John, last week or this week, something like that. Is that correct?
Mac, as far as my time frame is aware, I believe it was going because I put my order in for it quite a while back. So
Right.
at least based on my information on the backlog of printing, I thought it was going to go to print this week, but I have yet to get a confirmation on that.
Right. So, you can view the draft online, but the final is maybe not there yet. But some good news. Now, I don't know, John and I had this discussion before the meeting started. Keep in mind, we have layers of energy codes now in the state of Colorado as a result of House Bill 22-1362 and the changes that law brought to the state 2 years ago this month. One of the things that was changed, the insulation requirements in the attic went from R60 back to R49. Another change is they took the requirement for solar roof panel readiness from a requirement. It's now in the appendix, so it's optional. Now, we don't know how the state is going to change their model energy code as a result. We have no clue. They also took the requirement for a type 2 EV charger, 40 amp in the garage, moved it to the appendix as well. It's also now optional. They took the requirement to wire out every major appliance station. So if you were building a home with a gas furnace, gas stove, gas oven, all that, you also had to parallel that with electrical wiring. So if an owner in the future wanted to go electric, it was pre-wired for it, even if the original owner didn't want that. That has been moved to the appendix as well. Now, it's not all good news. They've tightened up the ACH requirement. It was 5 ACH at 50 pascals. And I forget what the new requirement is, but it is a little tougher. But John, it's been interesting to see. I know you have a lot of test reports on air exchange and leaks and stuff coming in at 4.99. And you may see it go to a new number once I get to look at the 2024 code. But anyway, a lot of appeals on trying to get some of the more onerous requirements of 21 changed in the 24 IECC. I think it was a step in the right direction. And quite honestly, I don't think it's going to ever go back down to say R38 in the attic. It's going to be at 49 from now on. It may go back to 60 in the future, but the arguments that were made, the economic arguments that R60 didn't have a return on investment were loud and persuasive and carried the day for that. But just get used to R49. You still need to do raised heel trusses to get that out to the top plate on the exterior wall. And that is life. John, feel free to jump in on anything I've said. I'm an amateur here, so.
Oh, well, no, Mac, you did a great job. The only thing I would just remind everyone and caution everyone to is just because the draft is out for the 2024, just because eventually one day it's finally going to go to print. We're not sure when, but it will. That the only bearing that book right now is going to have is potentially with the Colorado Energy Office and the legislators on how they may eventually change or redraft what they currently have as the Colorado State Energy Code and the Model Electric and Solar Ready Code. Just because the 2024 Energy Code states that you can, do solar ready potentially as an option, or do electric pre-wire wherever you have a natural gas or propane appliance, does not mean that that's the direction the state's going to go. So right now, the state has their 2021 energy code as the state energy code. They also have the model electric and solar ready code. The model electric and solar ready code, that's what we were able to get out of by doing the code adoption when we did on June 30th of last year. Keep in mind though, we really don't know what the state's going to do. I would just caution everyone, use the 2024 energy code, just kind of like I will for right now, as a reference, as something to kind of keep on the radar. But as we move forward, there is no guarantee that some of those reduced requirements in the 2024 are going to funnel their way into the state energy code or what is the model electric and solar ready code.
Thank you for that clarification, John. You know the state level stuff far better than I do, and I appreciate your knowledge on that. Anybody got anything else?
You probably saw in your packet, there was just a notation in Dave, excuse me, Dave's memo that Roger Lovell, Chief Building Official, will be here June 6th to talk to City Council, just provide kind of a general update in terms of just the scope of services and just kind of how the code implementation's been going this past year. You guys are probably aware, we had a pretty substantial turnover on City Council, so this is a great opportunity to help bring just kind of everybody back up to speed in terms of where we are and the level of service and expertise that we got from our partners at RVD and how grateful we are for them. So it's a really great opportunity to kind of promote what they do for us, for the City Council and then the community as a whole. So we're just very grateful that it took a little work, but we got our schedules to coincide. So that's why we got June 6th set up with Roger.
Thank you for setting that up, Karen.
Absolutely.
Any more discussion on anything pertaining to this board?
I do not.
Okay.
Thanks for the snacks.
Pardon?
Thanks for the snacks.
Oh. All right, in that case, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
So be it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Glad to see y'all. Thanks for having me and thanks for going easy on me today.
Keep your
Always a
snowshoeing.
pleasure to have you at our meetings, John.
Well, hopefully the next one it'll work out. Maybe I can be there in person.
Super. Love
All
to see
right.
you.
See y'all.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.